Okay, let's use the aggregate demand and the supply curve to apply to another case. Let's see what happened to the equilibrium price, the average price level, and the aggregate output in both the short run and the long run. Again, to analyze this, you first have to draw the aggregate demand, aggregate supply curves, the price level, the output, the long run aggregate supply curve, vertical, short run aggregate supply curve is upward sloping, and the aggregate demand curve is downward sloping. So intersection determine the initial price level and the initial output level. So when we say the aggregate demand shock, means a shock to the demand side of the society. Suppose we assume the stock market in America collapsed. So what happened to this model here? Can we use the model to analyze the price level and the equilibrium output in both short run and the long run? Yes. Stock market crash means the people's wealth goes down. Because of this, the people will cut their consumptions, spend less money on the goods and the services. And if we look at the whole society aggregate expenditure, with a lower level of the consumption, aggregate expenditure goes down, which means aggregate demand goes down. So that's a very typical, the aggregate demand shock. So it will push the demand curve to the left. And from this graph, we can see the economy will move from initial point A to the new point, the intersection between the new aggregate demand curve and the short run aggregate supply curve, B here. So short run, after aggregate demand curve shift, what happened to the price? The average price level will goes down, and the aggregate output or GDP will goes down as well. And this is shown by the movement from A to B. And let's talk about this as a first step. Then, could the economy stay on the B for a long time? Let's see what happened to the B. At the B, the output level Y is low. And you can imagine, if the aggregate demand is low, output level is low, do the firm need to hire many workers? As a manager of the firm, you will find out, because they have to cut output, they don't need many workers. So they will start to lay off workers at the point of the B. This will cause the wage to go down. Meanwhile, at the B, aggregate demand is weak. In order to sell the products they produce, a lot of firms will cut the price of their output. And we can imagine, with the lower level of the wage, with the lower level of the output, the average price level will continue to go down. And at the same time, and because of the wage, the salary goes down means the input cost, the labor goes down. If the input cost goes down, and it actually will affect the supply side. If you can recall, the labor cost is one of the three factors will shift the short-run aggregate supply. And the short-run aggregate supply curve will shift to right. So using the graph, short-run aggregate supply curve will shift to the right, and it will move the whole society from B to C. So that's the second step. After economy move from B to C, we can use the equilibrium point. The price will move out from the P1 at this point to the P2 at a new point, and after economy move from B to C, the output will move from the Y1 to the Y0. So that's the shift. That's what happened in the second. Price continue to drop, but the output will rebound back to the long-run equilibrium. Yeah, of course, if we see this happen in the real world, especially in the short run, what does it mean of the reduction in the aggregate output? It means a recession, right? And we know when economy experiences a recession, a lot of the workers will be laid off. That's exactly what happened at B. But if we leave the economy alone, economy will make adjustment from the point B to the C in the long run. Eventually, the output level will go back to the equilibrium, and the price level will drop to the even lower levels. But the question here is, how many people like the economy move from B to C? Especially, it may take a long time for the economy to recover from the B to C when the output increase. So during this long period of the time, the unemployment may remain at a relatively high level. Right? So that's a question, and we can discuss the next application using this model here.